blows my mind that a guy would build this motor with all this high-end heads and cam and roller lifters and roller rockers, and then do this with the spark plug wires. Completely burnt, and this ugly bird nest. And just to show what kind of quality the guy was when he tried to get the engine in, these aren't the headers that were on it when I bought it. It was a different set, and he had just beat the out of them with a sledgehammer. Crazy. He had a machine shop do all the major work, and they did an excellent job. Then he did all the outside stuff that a typical garage personal mechanic would do, a DIYer. And he stripped things out, he crushed the headers, he just did some really stupid things. Well, this is one of them that just to scratch my head. But really nice MSD spark plug wires. And he didn't shorten them. He just rolled them up into a bunch and put a bunch of zip ties on them. So that's the way they were. And because of the way he did it, a lot of these wires are burnt from being on the header. He did the same thing on both sides. Coiled them all together, zip tied them, and you can see that one's burnt right through. I heard this motor run. It ran fantastic. So when I took delivery of this motor, he had just pulled the cap off, left all the wires on it, and he had these over the wires. So I didn't see these were all burnt, and because they were covered, I think it protected them from arcing out, and that's why it ran so good. Otherwise it would have ran terrible from shorting out. But there are several of these that are just completely melted. So I will be modifying these. None of the actual wires are damaged anywhere that I can see, so I will really inspect them good. And then on top of that, I'm going to take all of these ends off, custom make these so that they all are an exact fit. So for now, I need to start working out the firing order. I want to set the number one cylinder to top dead center so that I can set the cap and rotor to the correct position, get it somewhat timed where I think it should be, and then I'll modify all these. Cut all of these crazy zip ties, figure out what lengths I want. These lengths are massive. Huge, huge wires. So along with all the other things that I found on this engine that is just weird, one of the things that the prior builder, or I'm going to assume that it was the DIY guy that was doing this in his garage, he set the timing on this wrong. It works the way he did it, but it's not correct the way this was actually set up to be. And that is when this drops all the way down in to position for number one, it should be pointing this way, but it's pointing this way. Probably just didn't know how to get it aligned. I didn't really know myself. I'm a GM guy. So a Ford, to me, it dropped down in, so I would have just adjusted the wires to go on the cap, this being number one now. But number one should be over here, and it actually has a 1 on the cap. So I want to set it correctly, so I'm going to just keep trying to bump this thing around. Okay, now it has dropped in where it's supposed to be. And it's just a matter of bumping that shaft that goes to the oil pump to get it to finally go the direction that it should. Now, I put on my cap and I line up this notch with this screw. My number 1 is right here. And it is pointing directly at it. Now I have the timing off. I set it at top dead center. I want to advance it to about 12-15 degrees. Since this has got a cam, it might even be as much as 30 degrees advanced. So I'm going to start with about 15 degrees. Now I have it pointing here, and when I drop the cap on, I'm over here, so I'm quite a ways off. I want to twist this to line up. Alright, so what I recommend for this project is, since you're going to be cutting the ends of these off, I want new boots that are high heat resistant boot, and I want a new connector at the end, and I want a good, easy to use crimping tool. Along with that, in order to get this shoved into the new boots, I like to use a good quality dielectric grease. So this grease works really good to line the boot and the wire so that you can slide it in, especially on an angled boot. So what I ended up buying, I didn't like the red, but I couldn't find any. This is 115 degree angled boots. These boots will angle that wire up and away from the headers. And these boots, according to the label, are professional racing boots, so they're specifically made for extremely high heat. And they're made in a kit that also comes with the connectors, and these are straight. But after you install them, you bend them to this 115 degree angle while they're in the boot or just before you pull it onto the boot. And I'll show you all those steps as we go through it. This kit, for 8 of these, was right around 40 bucks. So they're not cheap. This whole wire set was $65, $70. But if you buy this kit, you can get it without these pieces connected. And then you can connect them yourself, and then you can cut it to the lengths that you want. This particular kit came all pre-made, all the connectors on. So to modify, you would have to pay extra to get these extra pieces. And you've got to buy a good quality tool to crimp it and to cut it. So I would recommend buying a set that these connectors aren't on, and they come with a little press that you can press on these fittings with a vise. And when I first saw that, I thought, well, why do you have to use a vise? After crimping one on myself, it takes a lot of force to smash these. They're pretty strong. So yeah, the vise would work great, or you can buy the tool. This tool is 40 bucks, but it also does several other types of crimps for other wire connectors that I can use for many other things. So it was well worth it to me. So the first thing I want to do is I want to have plenty of room so that I can adjust, because this timing on this can adjust from 10 to 40 degrees, and it's probably going to have a sweet spot of about high 20s. So I want to make sure I have plenty of room to move. Looks like it's about right. Plus these little metal attachments add about 1 inch. So that's probably about good right there. Now that is cut off, I will want to get my boot on here. So put on some dielectric grease. And this dielectric grease serves two purposes. One, it seals moisture out. And two, it lubricates this so that it slides easily on the boot, because these boots are really tight. Now to get this boot around this bend, try to hold that straight as possible. Now we want to strip this wire back about 3/4 of an inch. Inspect the wire, make sure there's not any little plastic coating or anything on it that would stop good power flow. You want to bend that over, and then this piece fits right up against that so that it bottoms out just past those crimps. Make sure that little electrode is between the rubber and the metal. And then the crimping tool goes right in the middle of that metal piece, and then it just ratchets a little bit at a time. This takes a lot of pressure to crimp that. And once it releases, then it is fully crimped. Now you can see it's just a really nice professional piece. I'll turn that boot around so that when this is bent, it is in the correct spot. Now I need to bend this so that it is at this 115-degree angle. And to do that, I just hold it with my vice grips, and then it will bend to that angle. Now I can pull it the rest of the way. And I like to take it just to the point where it's at the edge, and then I can get it on the spark plug and push it the rest of the way with the actual spark plug. But before I do that, I don't like this red. And I also want more heat protection, so I'm going to use these black sleeves. The black sleeves will bottom out all the way to the bottom, and there's a metal ring on here it will hold it in place so that it doesn't slide off. So now I can put that right up against the spark plug and shove it the rest of the way in. You'll hear it click into place. And you can feel that that boot is all the way down. And then I can also feel that boot is pointing straight up. So now, when this is back in place, I have a good amount of clearance for everything, and I am ready for my next boot. And then I have a nice wire connector set. They're these little pieces. It's a nice aluminum piece. Then I will put those in to hold them all somewhat together. They're not perfect together, but it'll hold them enough, and it'll keep the distance away from everything with these added heat shields. Should look wonderful. So now I feel really good about these two. Now I got 6 to go. Okay, now that I have all my boots pointing in the right direction, nice and tidy. Now I just need to clean these up. I'm going to start with a 2-hole clip. I want to attach these two together. And I can just slide that up tight to hold those two. And then I got a 3-hole position. I'll slide up tight to this one, and then I got 4 holes that I'll slide up tight to this one. Okay, now with all of these little clips attached, you can just kind of position them where they look best as possible. Again, there are some nicer ones that attach to the bolts of your valve cover, but I don't like the way it takes away from this, and I like the looks of the boot. So, you know, it's really kind of a personal preference as to how far you want to go, and cleaning all the wires up, and whether they're on the outside, the dipstick, just how they all arrange. But this has a pretty decent look. Doesn't have that really expensive look either, because that's not what I'm about with this Jeepster. I want everything to look really, really nice, but I don't want it to look over the top expensive. Yeah, looks great. All right, now I just need to do the other side, and because of the brake master cylinder and the brake lines and stuff on that other side, it's kind of hidden, but I'll get that all lined up best I can like this side, and then I'll show you how it looks. Alright, so now you can see I've got all my boots on, all my heat shields, I've got the wires all connected together. Nice and neat. You can see my distributor. Got everything nice and neat and organized. It wraps around this side. Got, again, same connectors and boots and whatnot. It's kind of hidden under the master cylinder on all the brake lines. But still, if anybody was to take a gander down around all this area with the hood open, it's just got a really nice professional finish. So I've got a couple of things I need to do, well, several things still before I can start it. That sender for the oil has to be swapped out from my new gauges. I need to put in the new oil filter, change the oil. Guy said it's got 1,500 miles on the oil change, but that was a couple years ago, and with some of the crap he's done to this motor, I don't trust him anyways. The oil does look clean, but then that sensor has got to be changed for the new gauges. That sensor is the one for the carburetor. And then it's just a matter of, I've got to put the front end on now so that I can put in the radiator and put in all the fluids. So yeah, I am really close to getting this thing all fired up. It's getting really exciting. All right. Well, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Leave me a comment. Love to hear from you. Thanks again. Goodbye for now.